Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. I tell you one thing, whoever the next Celtic manager is will have a dilemma. He'll have a dilemma because there is a striker that is on the books at Celtic. When you see this goal, I've got to say, it's an absolute cracker. But I don't want to just talk about that striker because I know that we've got young Osmond on the books at Celtic. But there's another player that the touch from this forward is absolutely unbelievable. Let's just put me over here at the road, up here at there. What's this touch? Takes it on his chest and then flicks it. And you're thinking, that's nothing special. But it's where it lands. It lands right at the feet of Johnny Kenny. That was unbelievable. Now, would they get the room to do it in Scottish football? That's the big question. Maybe not. Could Celtic rip teams apart and will teams defend like the way that this team are defending? Maybe not. But then when you look what Johnny Kenny does here, one touch and then two touch, bang, in the back of the net. Come on. Surely we've been given Johnny Kenny. I mean, the number 48. I'm going to look into him in a minute, but this touch that comes over, that's magnificent. Come on. And he's only valued at around about 2 million. People will say, oh, this is as downsizing if we were to go for a player like him. But teaming up with Johnny Kenny like that, that's what we need at Celtic, isn't it? We need two up front. If Bolton can play with two up front, why can't Celtic? I'm going to let you watch that again because the touch. We'll get right back to the ball as it's coming over. I mean, it's a great ball from midfield. A little bit of spin on it, takes it on his chest, flicks it to Kenny, knows where Kenny's going to be. Got a good understanding with Johnny Kenny, and then Johnny Kenny whacks it into the back of the net. Boom! That's what we need. We need that at Celtic. It's if you're looking for an excuse to say that Johnny Kenny's a bad player at Celtic, it's all about service. And Johnny Kenny never got any kind of service like that in at his feet at his time at Celtic. Not in front of the box anyway. And the next manager, whoever is the next manager at Celtic, will have a dilemma because Johnny Kenny can score goals. He's proven that. And some say, well, it's in a lower league in England. Can he do it at the top level? If you give Johnny Kenny the service, if you give Johnny Kenny that type of service, it shows you that he can do it. Now, let's look into the number 48 that he's playing beside, because he himself is only 22 years old. Come on, if you're good enough, and if you're young enough, you're good enough, you play. Celtic have got this thing about putting 22-year-olds out on loan. Johnny Kenny and everyone putting them out on loan because they're not good enough for Celtic. There's a young guy, Mason Paul James Burstow. He can play as a left winger and he can play as the main striker. He is playing as the main striker for them, but he's also playing with Johnny Kenny just behind him. He's only valued at around about €2.5 million. That's not a lot of money. That's not a lot of cash at all for a young player. Now, I'm not saying that Celtic should go out and buy him, but if that's the kind of service that he's given, he's came through Charlton, he was at Chelsea, under 23s, he was at Sunderland, and then Hull City, Bolton, Hull City, and back to Bolton. It is an interesting one. I think that you can say that these clips show you the best parts, but we've not got anyone at Celtic that can control a ball like this. There's no one at Celtic that could give Johnny Kenny that type of service. And all I'm saying is, do you know, we maybe be better looking at managers that have a wider scope. Look at this. Fantastic. What exactly? What a finish. What a goal. 5-5 for Johnny Kenny. But a lot of Celtic fans say he's rubbish, and he's definitely not rubbish. That is for sure. Maida would fresh air that it ended up on his backside. Yeah. You know, we've got to really look at Celtic, and this is a massive, massive summer. And whoever the incoming manager is, you know, if we do go out and buy this type of player that's going to cost 2 million, I've got to say, might be a not bad piece of business. Maybe when we're looking at the likes of Arne Engels and stuff and paying 10 million for the likes of Arne Engels, maybe we should be trying to convince these players from the lower leagues of England that are. I mean, what happened to the guy that we brought in under Brendan Rodgers that was meant to be looking at all these players down in England for us? It's typical Celtic. It just faded into nowhere, didn't it? Anyway, would you buy the English Jamaican forward? He's valued at £2.5 million at Bolton Wanderers, age 22. He himself has scored 12, 17 goals this season. 17 goals for a 22-year-old. Just shows you. Maybe the physicality. I mean, is it physical? Oh man, it's all hearsay, but I definitely think he looks around about the same height as Johnny Kenny. You see the two of them embracing each other. Could be worth a shout. Anyway, in more Celtic news, Daisen Maeda. Daisen Maeda has vowed to, for the remaining 4 games, put in a shift and a half. Daisen Maeda, has got to be said, over the course of the season, Daisen Maeda has not. Let's put this table up a bit. Dyson Maeda has not performed the way that he maybe should have over the course of the season. And he knows that. That's the thing. Dyson knows that he hasn't been in top form. You've got to say, yesterday, Martin O'Neill praised the fact that he never left in the summer because it looks like Dyson Maeda could be hitting top form at the right time. There were so many good things to take out the game yesterday. Yes, it was a plug ugly game. It was a game of it was like a game of table tennis or something. On the first 20 minutes, it was frantic, it was fast, it was two teams just going at each other, not really having. I think the game plan completely went out the window, and it was just, let's just try and get as much of the ball as we can and show the fans that we're actually putting in an effort today. Once the team did settle down after the 20-minute mark, it was good to see Celtic starting to play football, but it was frantic yesterday. It was a 3-1 win, and ultimately, that's all that matters at this stage. You know, win the games, and the only club in the history of the split to win 5 games after the split is Celtic. We know how to do it. We have done it. And I'm pretty confident this morning. I don't care what the other results will be today. You know, what will be will be. The other clubs going into the game today will be thinking, you know, we get our results and we put Celtic back down into third position, and they'll think that they deserve to be there, which they've got the right to do so. I mean, they were sitting above us. Well, one team was sitting above us, but the fact that we've pulled ourselves back into this fight, I've got to say the Green Brigade were absolutely fantastic yesterday for the full 90 minutes. Non-stop in the section, shows what's been missing. It shows that there's a bit of unity, kind of. There was the chant of sack the board stuff from that section. And, it won't go away. There does have to be change at Celtic. There needs to be change this summer, and change for the better. And not just a change of manager, not just a change of backroom staff, not just a change of scouting network. I really hope that we bring in, whoever that we do bring in, has his own trusted people, because that's when you you get big change. And whoever we bring in, I hope that he stays here for around about 4 years, because it's a massive rebuild, and it's a rebuild that it's not just for this summer. You know, it's not like getting. It's like they say that a dog's not just for Christmas. Celtic's not just for Christmas. This is a complete rebuild of the club that can take the club forward. And if we win the league this year, the next manager that comes in has the possibility to repeat history and make an absolute legend of a name for himself. And that's what Celtic should be selling it for. Do you know, it's like, well, if we can win the league this year, you know, you've got a manager that can come in and say, well, if you're wanting a 5-year deal, 4-year deal, you've got the chance to become legendary status at this club, to really achieve something that's only been achieved twice before, because Celtic have won 2-9 in a row before it. Anyway, we do move on from that. Dyson Maeda, has he hit form at the right time? Yes. Is he looking to finish a success with Celtic? I would say yes. I think it would devastate Dyson Maeda more than anything if he was to end up with in his final season at Celtic after putting in so much effort over the years and winning so much. You've got to say, I mean, Dyson Maeda, his trophy haul at Celtic for a foreign player is quite phenomenal. It's the same with Rio Hatate. Rio Hatate not getting near the pitch. Tam the Czech not getting near the pitch. It's got to say that when it comes to the previous transfer window, and this is why it's so important in the summer, we've got the big decision. I mean, next week I'm still expecting Celtic. Historically, Celtic put the date that they put out the season ticket renewals was on Friday. They've decided to not do that on Friday there because they told Rangers fans they weren't getting into the stadium. So that then puts it on to this week. It's rather close to the end of the season. Celtic like to get it done, and you know, the season ticket renewal sent out before the end of the season. It's always a month before. We're now under that month timeline. So it's going to be very interesting watching Celtic media over the next week, because they have to try and slip it in somewhere, don't they? And with the good news, and even better news that there's no Rangers fans coming, you would have thought that was the perfect time. You never know, you might wake up this morning and there's an email in your inbox saying Celtic season ticket renewals. Anyway, this weekend could change everything. Yes, it could. Bring Hoopie and Haley out with the Green Brigade to stir the pot against Sevco. Nice relaxing Sunday for Celtic fans today. No stress, no pressure on us on this sunny Sunday. Few beers, chicken dinner, crack the Deep Purple up to 11, watch the Hearts and Rangers under pressure. The pressure is on, and you know, getting the games in first is better, isn't it? You get the result in, you know, you're not chasing it. Okay, we're joint top at the top of the table as it stands this morning. The goal difference, it's too late to talk about goal difference. Far too late. If we'd got our finger out, when I wanted us to get our finger out, we could have been in such a better place, but we didn't. Let's put it down here. I just don't really need the bottom six. When you look at the league table, Celtic have won the first of their matches. Can Celtic win 5 out of 5? I think they can. I think that we can. I think that Hearts will crumble on the last day of the season. Personally, I think that when you look at the games, do you know, Hibernian and Motherwell managers were there yesterday looking at Celtic and Falkirk. They would have seen a resurgence in Celtic that hasn't been seen all season. A Celtic Park that's in full voice. Do you know, with that small band of Hearts fans in the last game of the season, with no Rangers fans, and I hope that Celtic stand firm on that one, with no Rangers fans being at the game for that one, a small crowd of 1,400 fans going to Hibernian, which I think is the disgrace, considering Hibernian were publicly complaining about losing money this season due to the downturn in their own fans, hence and also the fact that they decided to reduce the away fans. With 1,400 Celtic fans going to Hibernian, I still think that Celtic can do it at Hibs. It's never an easy game at Hibs, but I think that we'll have enough to get it over the line there. Motherwell, I think, will win that one. Motherwell are kind of toiling at the moment. They're not the form that they were in. And I think that it will honestly come down to the Rangers. We're due one over Rangers. Come on. I mean, drawn 0-0 with them in the last game, taking it to extra time and penalties and stuff. You're thinking, we really need to get a good. We're due one over them. We're due a good performance, and it showed me yesterday that there is the appetite. We were kind of wondering, do the players have the appetite for this kind of performance? We've seen it in a 7 minute spell in at Hampden in extra time, and we wondered, can we take that and transfer it into a first, even a first 45 minutes, because the first 45 minutes playing at that level can devastate another team. Do you know? But then you've got the second half to contend with, and Celtic always seem to let things slip in the second half. And you've got to say, fair play to Falkirk yesterday. They did have a good go. There was a chance that Falkirk could have went 2-up at one point. They had the early chances. Thank goodness that Sinisalo was in goals yesterday, because that save to his left-hand side was absolutely brilliant. That was top-notch stuff. You know, that's a goalkeeper that we need to. And I'm not sure what length of contract that Sinisalo's on. He's not the finished article, but he's got a good few years growth left in him as a player. I mean, people are going on about he needs to work on his kicking. We had a certain player on loan. We never had him permanently. We had a goalkeeper on loan from Spurs, and he used to be out practicing his kicking at Celtic Park every half time. Every half he'd come out the dressing room early, and he'd be there with the goalkeeping coach practicing his kicking. Maybe Sinisalo needs to do something similar to that. But I think that he's a fantastic goalkeeper, and the team seems a bit more assured at the back with him at the back. But anyway, he's the goalkeeper at the end of the season, and he will be the goalkeeper next season. So Johnny Kenny doing absolutely fantastic. Give the next manager headaches. Dies Maeda want to give us his best in the last remaining 4 games of the season. It's down to the wire now with Celtic, and I wonder what the summer will bring. Talk of new manager. There is a manager who's been mentioned once again, and it was interesting yesterday, talking about hierarchy at Celtic. It was interesting that Callum McGregor give Alistair Johnston the captain armband. I know that he's third in line to the throne after Cameron Carter-Vickers, because Cameron Carter-Vickers is the official second in command after Callum McGregor. Alistair Johnston took to Instagram last night. At last we are back, he said. At last we are back. It's his stuff on Instagram. Let's see if we can get this full screen for you. Let's just increase this. Alistair Johnston on Instagram yesterday. Him training before the game, looking in good shape. He'll just be thinking one thing, the World Cup. And then there he is, going around the ground after the game. Alistair Johnston, Dies Maeda, smiling. And it was good to see him all smiles yesterday. But at last, we are back. Adam Ida even commented. Adam Ida, things you love to see. There's a player we remember like Callum Osmond. He's got a bit of a come out. Sinisalo as well. Things you love to see. And then, yeah, quite a few comments. Anyway, that is that update. Let's dive into some comments this morning, see how you feel about the game yesterday. If the title sequence occurred, we could actually draw with the Huns and still win it. Ooh, it's in the Huns' own hands if they want tickets, not by selling them to the Onion Bears. The fans should be calling it out, says Joseph Davison. But if we also beat the Huns, we could win it at Fir Park. If we, yeah, there's all sorts of possibilities that's left. I don't think. I mean, what? There's one thing for sure. We've got a fantastic couple of weeks of football lined up in front of us. So I'd say brilliant save. Noticed he was quicker and not messing around at the back. Yeah, I've said that since last season when he was unfairly dropped for the cup final. We seen it last season, and he was quicker. He doesn't like to keep the ball. He doesn't like to pass it out to the defenders as much. You know, this playing out safe that Brendan Rodgers wanted to do, play out to the defenders, play out for the back. Teams are catching on to that with Celtic, and they're closing down. I mean, if Dice and Maeda can close down and get goals, other teams are going to try it with us. And it's good to see that Sinisalo's like, fuck that, get the ball out quick. You know, get the ball out quick and hit on the break. And that's what a real good Celtic team does. If you think about going all the way back to Tommy Burns, goalkeeper would get the ball out and you would hit on the break fast. Do you know? And that's how Celtic score their goals. You know, it's coming out from defence into attack. You know, there goes the Jackie McNamara song. Oh, his name is McNamara, and he's the Celtic boys are back. He's 40 is a turning defence into attack. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. He's Jackie McNamara. Anyway, that's a long time ago, that song, wasn't it? Don't know how that came into my head, because it was all about talking defence into attack the Celtic way under Tommy Burns. Paul says, next August, my 50th, watching Celts. They've been the worst team. Let's try and keep that in mind, fellas Celts. I like the idea of some bears in, maybe like 11. Yes, I'll probably do a Sunday night update. I will do a Sunday night update tonight. I used to do a Sunday night update around about 8 o'clock. I might do it a little bit early, but we'll see. John McGlynn did a wee job for us. He did a job in the B team, but I don't think that he is potential Celtic manager material. I don't think that he's the man to take the club forward in a European context, to be fair. Hopefully finally hitting form right at the right time, and with players coming back too. It was interesting that when you look at the team yesterday, Callum Osmond didn't make the bench. You're wondering, will he make the bench at any point? Is there room for him to make the bench? You would kind of hope so, because you're wanting him to try and get some football in before next season. I mean, the main players will always get the plaudits, you know, but I think that Callum Osmond getting a couple of goals earlier on in this season, finding a bit of form, Martin O'Neill has to pick obviously the best players. But when you see the fact that Tam the Czech wasn't even on the bench yesterday, don't know, you can understand why Iniacho's getting a shout. He's got that little bit more experience. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be really difficult for Callum Osmond to try and get some game time, especially when now with so much competition. And you can understand why Johnny Kenny was allowed to go out on loan from Celtic. And it's been proven right, you know. And I just wish that Celtic had got their act together last summer and give Johnny Kenny that full season out on loan. Could you imagine if Johnny Kenny did get the full season out on loan at Bolton? You know, got to remember that they come in with a £500,000 bid for him. They've been keeping their eyes on him for a long time. Johnny Kenny went through a season scoring 15, 20 goals for Bolton. Celtic fans would be like, we need to get him back. But we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Alistair Johnston coming on. McCowan was on the bench. Oxlade-Chamberlain comes on. Tenecti comes on. Sirachi comes on. Hatate left on the bench again by Martin O'Neill. And rightly so. Some people say yesterday that he should have been on for Arne Engels isn't that great. Hatate slows the game down too much. And I think that that's been noticed by the Celtic hierarchy. And especially when we need a fast attacking game in this run-in. Nice for all the Celtic people to be on the same page yesterday. I felt emotional for me to see us all unite in the sunshine. Something magical is happening. I felt it here. And you've just got that, you just know, you know, Celtic has this turning adversity into something. You know, if we do this, if we win this league, after being behind for so much of this season, I mean, these players have got a chance. And this is why it's important. And people say it was the wrong thing to give Luke McCowan an extended deal. It was the wrong thing to give James Forrest an extended deal. I think that these are the type of people that know Celtic history, that know the history of the club, that know that, you know, they're the ones that will explain to the players that 40 years ago Celtic came from behind to win on the final day of the season, and it can be done. And that little bit of motivation, that little bit of you're at a big club here. There's a big expectation, but the fans are right behind us at the most important part of the season. I think it'll be unbelievable if we do it. Hibs for the win today, Baz. Well, let's hope so. A couple of doubles and a hat trick. I thought Kalmak, it was a bit off yesterday. It's an interesting one because I was sent a message after the game yesterday, and there is a bit of will Kalmak be here after the summer? The way that Kalmak was walking around the pitch after yesterday's game, there is a bit of will Kalmak be here? And it wouldn't surprise me if he left the club, but I think he will be here. He's got 2 years left on his contract. It all depends who the next manager is. You know, the next manager might not fancy Oxlade-Chamberlain and Callum McGregor in the same team at the same age. You know, they might think that it's a bit top heavy for if you want to achieve things in Europe. You know, if you want to, we've got to get into Europe first of all. But the next manager might think that there's too many older guys in this team. You know, I want to get a young, more energetic team. Like when you look at this, when you look at the front two for Bolton, I'm going to go back to that one. When you look at the front two for Bolton, both in their early 20s, you know, I mean, Johnny Kenny, loving life down there. For a 22-year-old, watch this. Off the chest, that little flick. He knew where Johnny Kenny was. That's 22-year-old. Dunno, it's and there's no ways he on massive wages done at Bolton. One touch, two touch, three touch, bang. If they're young enough and they're good enough, I think the problem that we had with Johnny Kenny was Johnny Kenny was the main striker at Celtic, and playing one up front, it's very difficult to be the main target man. I just think that Johnny Kenny maybe needs someone to play beside them. Anyway, let's jump through these comments. We're having this leak. Apparently that's 14 goals for Kenny between Celtic and Bolton this season. That's not a bad return, isn't it? You know, but we've no strikers. No strikers at all that are doing that time. But as that song will be in my head all day now. Oh, cracker. That is a cracker old song, like. Is Bernardo dressed up as James McCarthy at Halloween and hasn't come back? Oh, that's an interesting one. I mean, Paulo Bernardo, he's been at Celtic a couple of years now. The fact that he's not getting the game time. I mean, Martin O'Neill must think that he's not going to do it at Celtic. Don't know. Felt it in the stadium at Stuttgart Baz. We are consistently singing and party, mate. That noise massively propelled our team onto our first ever win on German soil. Yep. I've got a feeling. That I never had. Put it this way, I've got a feeling that I never had in December and January. I didn't think, I thought it's Hearts to lose. And now I think it's ours to win. I really do. And I generally never had that feeling back in December. It was ours to win. I was like, we are absolutely rank rotten. But I think that we could be hitting form at great time. I thought Tenecti couldn't play on the right side. Who said that again? I don't know. Who said it? Thought Kalmark lifted the tempo yesterday. Him and Engels seemed a lot less lethargic. Ott plays like one. Good morning from the Gorbals. Fantastic part of the world. The Falkirk goal was a peach. Yeah, I mean, you can't take anything away from that Falkirk goal. That was an absolute cracker. And it had a bit of spin on it as well. It had a little bit of curve on it. And you've got to say, there's no way that the goalkeeper was saving it. No goalkeeper was saving that. That there's not one goalkeeper in the history of Celtic that could have got that with the pace. I mean, he took that down beautifully as well. Talking about the Johnny Kenny goal, he took that down just as good. And that bit of curve on the ball. Hopefully it's a beautiful Sunday. Denecti a bit more direct, natural on the right side. Too much thinking, coaching when he plays on the left, maybe. Where was Ben Arthur? Was he injured or not on the bench? Dane Murray was on the bench. So I think that sometimes you need to just go with the homegrown talent. It was Rogers that said it. Rogers said the less we talk about Rogers, the better. Because Brendan Rodgers and his time at Celtic. Brendan Rodgers, it's a shame because Brendan Rodgers had such a good time the first time round at Celtic, apart from the way that he left the club. This time around, Brendan Rodgers seems to have broken players more than he made players. He consistently says that players weren't good enough. And was that he's the manager. He's the man that's meant to make them better. I think that Rodgers wanted away from Celtic way before he actually left the club. But anyway. We should have a serious look at the guy Wilson who scored. Either the guy Wilson that scored, or like earlier on in the video, the young guy that plays up front for Bolton. I think that he is a potential for Celtic. I mean, I'll show you that again because I thought the diagonal ball from midfield. If you watch it from here, let's turn that down. If you watch it from here, this diagonal ball is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's got a little bit of spin on it. You see it? Takes it down his chest. Flick. I'm not being funny like, but that reminds me of Hartson, Thompson, Sutton, Larsson, goal. It's got that ring about it. Three different players, 3 touches, and the ball's in the back of the net. I'm not saying that Johnny Kenny's ever going to be a Chris Sutton, but you never know. If he gets the right player up beside him, Johnny Kenny could be an absolutely fantastic player for Celtic next season. And there's one thing for sure, that when it comes to pre-season, the next Celtic manager will want to have a serious look at Johnny Kenny, because he'll sit down and he'll look at the stats of all the players. When he comes in, he'll sit down and look at the stats of all the players, and he'll look at Johnny Kenny with a bit of confusion and say, well, why the hell did you let that boy go out on loan? And look at the goals that he scored last season. But then again, some managers would go, why the hell did you sell Adam Ida? He scored 20 goals the previous season, and then you sell him. Anyway, Rogers said a lot of things. Most of it was crap and nonsense. Paul, I've got to hats off to you, mate. I mean, I was defending Brendan as the manager for as long as I could towards the end. But you were calling him out straight from the start. You called him out for when he came back. You stuck to your guns over the two and a bit years that he was here, and you said You know, he should never have been back at Celtic in any manner. So fair play to you for that, mate. I admit I got it wrong. Um, you swear I'm Johnny Kenny's agent. I wish. I love a bit of that kind of cash. You know how much money agents make? Jesus. Anyway, our poor season has purely been down to the injuries. Ironic that our form picks up when Engels, Iniacho, and Alistair Johnston are back. It does give the players a bit of motivation, doesn't it? It gives them a little bit of kick up the arse. Don't know. I think there's a little bit of complacency being in the team this season. Big bit. I think Rio Hatate was very complacent throughout the season. You know, knew that he was a first team starter, knew that he wasn't going to get dropped, and not putting in 110%. I think the one good thing that Martin Neil's done is made sure that everybody's fighting for their place. And if you're not at the top of your game, you're not going to get picked. Simple as that. Look at Tam the checked out. He was given every opportunity to show that he's the top level striker that Celtic need, and he didn't take them. As soon as Iniacho's back, he's like, "Well, you had your chance, mate. Don't know, you had your chance when he wasn't here. He's now back fit. He's maybe not 90 minutes. He maybe can't play a game for 90 minutes. We've got a big decision to make in the summer as well. We're going to be left with Johnny Kenny as our main striker. Kelechi Iniacho, do you seriously consider giving him a contract next year? Tam the Czech goes away. Junior Adamu, he disappears. That leaves us with Iniacho and Johnny Kenny and Callum Osmond. Don't know, but Callum Osmond's not a proven goal scorer as yet. What if Callum Osmond comes in and does a Johnny Kenny? You never know. Next season we might be in a weird phenomenon where we're actually playing Johnny Kenny and Callum Osmond up front. That would be fantastic. That would be absolutely brilliant if we were doing that. For a Celtic perspective, the only downside is the two of them aren't Scottish. You know, I would like to have a little Scottish player in there, but I don't think that there's anyone. I don't think that there's anyone that would in Scotland that could do that since Lee Griffiths. Met Bruni, who told me he's a Hibby through and through. Of course he is. I could have told you that. But he used to run about with the top men and the old Hibs casuals, mate. He's a Hibby well through and through. He used to run about with an old casual, an old Hibby casual that ran the show and wrote a book. Actually, he wrote about a book about the casual era, and he ran the doors for nightclubs. There's a security firm back in the day. But nah, he's always a Hibby. He's not. Bruni's not one of us. Don't know. He had a great career. He will always have that affiliation to Celtic, but he was never a Celtic. He's never a Celtic. Never a Celtic. Just up late says Peter King. Iniacho will get a new contract. He's going to have a big say in us winning the league title. But can Iniacho turn it on in Europe? Can Iniacho's record is not a record that screams I can score 15, 20 goals a season. Let's be honest. Celtic need a striker that can score 15 to 20 goals a season. It's as simple as that. And I don't think that Kelechi Iniacho would ever be that. If you keep Kelechi Iniacho, you've then got a dilemma what to do with Johnny Kenny and Callum Osmond. Because you will need to bring in another striker. I mean, any decent manager that comes in will want to say to Celtic, look, we need a real, maybe Johnny Kenny's that man. You never know. It's going to be a crazy, crazy pre-season. The Hibs casuals were mental. Yes, they were. They were that. And it was the Hibs casuals. Remember the picture when Bruni was sitting down steaming in Edinburgh? That's who he was out with that night. And the guy that took the picture, well, let's just say he wasn't taking more pictures of them anytime soon. Anyway, Getting Alistair Johnson and Maeda finds some of his form again. Yes, he is. Iniacho isn't worth a new deal. I don't think Iniacho will ever be fully match fit. 60 minutes sub as the best. Is he worth the money then? Because he's going to be on 30 odd grand a week. Is that really worth the money? How much would the young boy at Bolton be on, for instance? Where is he? Oh, I've lost it. Let me just see if I can find this young guy again. No. Mason Burstow. See if we can find out his salary. Agree. Oh, it's locked. That site's not going to give you it. You've got to pay. Got to pay to find out the salary. That's no bloody use. Come on. That young boy from Bolton is on £3,000 a week. That's nothing. And his contract's, that's a no-brainer. Could that be a no-brainer? This guy's out of contract. Transfer market. You could get that young lad, the young guy that laid off the ball for Johnny Kenny is out of contract in the summer. There you go. He's out of contract. No, it's not. It's 2028, sorry. No, 2026. He must have just been given a contract extension. He's just been given a 2-year extension by Bolton. £3,000 a week for that kind of potential. 22-year-olds. I would take a punt on it. Tony Bloom would never sell him to us. Likewise, Evan Ferguson. Let's dreams are dreams. Seems foolish to let Kenny leave. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But Martin O'Neill must have had his thinking behind it. You've got to remember that Johnny Kenny, he wasn't prolific, but you've got to put it down to the forwards as well. Don't know. Braga would score loads for us. You're not going to get him. Not a chance. We need an experienced fighter up front. We can't have 3 youngsters and Kelechi. We need a number 1 striker. Osmond and Kenny. Kelechi is back up. Have you become a scout for Celtic officially, Baz? No. Not a chance, Paul. Not a chance. But I'm going to have an interesting summer looking at some players at the World Cup. Any striker that we need in the summer has to be first choice. We have backup players. What if the new manager comes in and wants to play 2 strikers up front? Do we have enough strikers at Celtic? Having just got Osmond, Johnny Kenny, and but that's it. That's what you're really going to have, because Osmond he's not been offered the contract as yet. It's the next manager that comes in might say, look, I don't want Iniacho. I don't think he's good enough for Celtic. Could be the next manager that makes that decision. Martin O'Neill's and there's a thought, because Martin O'Neill has made decisions. Coffee's cold. Again. Martin O'Neill's made decisions on players that should be given contract extensions. James Forrest, we're waiting to see what's going to happen with Tony Ralston, whether he gets a contract extension, and we know the other players. Why hasn't Martin O'Neill isn't convinced in Iniacho. He isn't convinced, and the fact that Martin O'Neill came out publicly and said, I've spoken to Iniacho, and he said that he's in the form of his life. And Martin O'Neill was a bit confused by that comment. saying that the player thinks he's in the form of his life because he can't play 90 minutes. And that's not a player that's at top form. Martin O'Neill has had players of Kelechi Iheanacho's age and stature before. And could you imagine John Hartson turning around and Martin... Could you imagine Martin O'Neill saying that John Hartson couldn't play 90 minutes? John Hartson would never have had the career he had at Celtic. Chris Sutton would never have had the career at Celtic if they couldn't play 90 minutes. You know, and you've got to look at... That's what Martin O'Neill bases his Celtic players off of, what he had in the past. You know, you've got to live up to that expectation. And I seriously think that Kelechi Iheanacho will not be at Celtic next season. I think that Celtic will want to go for a refresh at that point. And you're right, they've got a couple of youngsters there, you know, but they will need to bring in. They could bring in two strikers. And the next manager may want to play two managers up front. Here's hoping. Osmond Kenny, another number one striker, not Kells. He's not good enough. Never fit, says Big Rab. We need to be playing two up front, a runner and a hold-up player like Big John and Big Bad John and Henny. Don't call Henrik that. Martin O'Neill will be the manager next season, in my opinion, says Jim. I disagree, Jim. I don't think that... I think it would... For all the good... I can understand why you would want Martin O'Neill to be the manager next season. But it's a sticking plaster. It's a sticking plaster. You know, it's a sticking plaster for the club that's just delaying the inevitable. And I don't think it would be correct for the business and the long-term objective of Celtic. If you get Martin O'Neill in next season, and you've got to say, Martin O'Neill brought in Mvuka, Junior Adamu, Tam the checked out. Martin O'Neill brought in these players in the last transfer window. It's not a fantastic record when he doesn't even want to play them. He doesn't think they're good enough. None of the players that came in the last transfer window are even making the bench now. You know, and you're thinking, well, they're all going to go in the summer. So Martin O'Neill says that he doesn't think that he has the energy for a full season. You know, you've got to remember he's 70-odd-year-old. We shouldn't be putting pressure on that like that on a 70-odd-year-old man. You know, for 12 months. That could add years on of him, and like Martin O'Neill says, he's not got long left. Do you know, you've not got... I mean, Martin O'Neill could still live for another 20 years, but you want to have him living for a happy 20 years and no completely knackered, which could happen to him. Martin told Brian Clough he was fit for a European Cup final, and Clough ignored him. Martin knows all about players saying they're fit when they really aren't. What if Iheanacho bangs in a hat-trick against Sevco? Doesn't matter, and I don't think he will. The Hibs casuals dropped me off in the Gorbals after a gig. There we go, the Blarney Pringles. The Hibs casuals were back in the day were brilliant. Were absolutely fantastic. They were full of easy good. A sticking plaster from the arm hanging off. We need a new manager, new direction in the board. Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. As much as I love Martin O'Neill, and I'm gutted that I've never been back this year, I think that we do need to move forward. If Martin O'Neill wins the league, I reckon he'd want to stay. I don't think so. Martin O'Neill did say when he came back, it doesn't matter what I do. And even when we were still in Europe, you know, and there was talk about Martin O'Neill trying to get to the later stages of Europe. How crazy was that with the current squad? He said, it doesn't matter what I achieve this season, I'm not going to be here. And I think that Martin O'Neill's a man of his word. You know, he's a man of his word. He told Dermot that, yes, I'll come in and sort it. And he also admitted that he's not had any conversations about the manager's role next year, which says to me that Celtic are doing work on potential other managers in the background. You know, they're not going to do a Neil Lennon and offer him the job in the showers. Martin O'Neill would never be seen in the showers with the players. If Martin O'Neill moves up to boardroom level, then hopefully the new manager will identify the players he wants, and Martin O'Neill will do the business of bringing in the players. I think that will always go down to Nicholson and co. I think that Nicholson would not like to leave his authority, give up his authority of the finance. A younger manager would be fantastic. I think we need to go back to a manager that is, you know, mid-40s, early 40s, mid-40s. We've done it before. They've been successful. I think that they could definitely be a success again. It's all about getting the right man in the job and giving them the correct tools. Whoever scouted Junior Adamu, the boy Mvuka, and Tam the Czech, they've not improved on what we got rid of in Paul Tisdale. The Paul Tisdale era at Celtic was a complete disaster. I mean, it was a complete disaster. And I don't think that we've improved the scouting since then. I think that we need a manager to come in that believes that Celtic are doing the right thing, believes the backroom staff that they've got. Do you know that maybe there wasn't a big enough clear out? I wonder if Dermot Desmond will ask O'Neill his preference for the new manager should be. Nah. Martin O'Neill plays the dithering old man far too well in public. But we all know that he's a highly intelligent guy. And when you look at, I mean, you can tell that he really looks after himself. And, you know, you're not seeing him eating kebabs and shit on a Saturday night, that's for sure. Martin O'Neill was the mascot at the 7-1 game. I might be drinking too early. He's better at a manager. He is better manager as approaching O'Neill rather than Peter Lawwell. When we win the double, we hope this board sees the errors of their ways and they fucked up the treble. Hopefully fix Celtic by spending wisely and cleaning in the house. If we win the double, having lost out on the League Cup, I think a lot of us will sit in the summer before the World Cup starts and we'll honestly be sitting having a conversation. Did that really happen? Do you know, when we sit at the end of we'll do a live after the Scottish Cup final, whatever way it goes, and we'll go through the season. We'll go right back to pre-season, and together we'll listen into interviews with Martin O'Neill, Brendan Rodgers, Callum McGregor, calling for players to be signed, and us wanting the business to get done early. But as the summer transpired, it was getting later and later and later, and the fans were getting disillusioned then. And then Brendan Rodgers, the very first interview of the very first game of the season, Brendan Rodgers made it all about him. Do you know, he made it all about... There was no need for Brendan Rodgers to dominate that first press conference. I'm still in shock at that first press conference, because rather than talking about the excitement of the game and everything, Brendan made sure that the narrative of that conversation stayed around his contract and what he would be doing next season. And I think it was around about 15, 18 minute interview, and it was predominantly about him staying at the club. He had a year left on his contract. No manager in living memory has ever had such press coverage around his contract on the very first day of the season. He set the tone for the press conferences each week after that. And it makes you wonder what was really going on at Celtic at that time. Had there been falling outs in the background? There was rumours of disillusionment between Rodgers and the hierarchy at the time. And we all know the way that the story panned out, don't we? But anyway, it's going to be crazy to sit down at the end of the season and go, Jesus, if we do it, it'll be fantastic. If we don't, we'll be like that. Well, we know what's happening. Martin O'Neill's chairman, get the red Tory out, bring in a modern negotiator as director of football. I'm right up for that one. Because Martin O'Neill doesn't need to be at the club on a daily basis. The chairman doesn't need to be at the club on a daily basis. I don't exactly know what he does, because you should have a management structure in place that, and structures in place that he just turns up for big decisions and stuff. We're still suffering from Tisdale's mess. Yeah, the football doctor. That worked well. Baz, I thought the wee boy who scored for Falkirk yesterday should be a player for us. He's played well, knows the Scottish game. He's big and strong, very fast. Could be a steal. Could be a steal, but people will see that as, the Celtic fans, they will just go, oh, that's us, we're downsizing, we're getting cheap players in, we're going down the cheap road. You'll see, I think that there needs to be a realisation this year. We're not going to, we've went down the Arnie Ingles road, spending, we brought in players at 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, and they've not been any good. You've still got to remember, we've got Balak Wisher to deal with in the summer. The next manager will need to have a look at Mikel Ange Balak Wisher. You've got to feel for that lad. From playing first team football, being chased by Celtic for 2 years, and then coming to Celtic, and you're absolutely just told you're no good. I thought the rumours are that Michael Nicholson is leaving his position in the summer. It's just rumours. Just rumours. Who is this Thomas Frank chap? I've got to say, I've never heard of him. He took over from Ange Postecoglou at Spurs. He's had an interesting career. Let's get some details about him. Thomas Frank. He's seen as an ambitious target for Celtic in the search for the new manager. He's a free agent, having left Tottenham after a disastrous spell, but it's Tottenham. You wouldn't. He's 52 years old. He was born on the 9th of October 1973. He's Danish. He is Danish. He has a BA in physics education from the Copenhagen Institute of Sport and Medicine, sports psychology, and coaching leadership. That's quite an educated man to have at Celtic in a managerial position. He had an amateur midfield career before moving into coaching. He seemed to have moved into coaching quite early. 1995 until 2013, he was youth coach at multiple Danish national youth teams. He was then the head coach of Brøndby. A lot of people will know that club. From 2013 until 2016, he was then assistant head coach at Brentford. He was then 2018 until 2025, he was the head coach at Brentford. From Brentford, he then left Brentford and he went on to be the head coach at Spurs. So on paper, he has longevity, and you can understand why he's been linked with the Celtic job. He did a good job at Brentford. It's got to be said. With very little money. Spurs, he had 38 games at Spurs, 13 wins, 10 draws, 15 defeats, 62 goals scored, 54 conceded, a win rate of 34%. People will look at his win rate and say his win rate's terrible. I wouldn't take anything that someone had done at Spurs. Because, I mean, Ange went on to win the Europa at Spurs. And then they sacked him. His formation is 4-4. This is where it gets interesting. Because his formation is 4-3-3. But it's also 4-4-2. That's where it gets interesting. He's the only manager that's been linked with Celtic that plays the good old-fashioned 4-4-2. Now, with a lot of people talking about changes of formation, you can understand why he's getting out to it. Paul Baird says Frank will not be the next manager, in my opinion. Who will be? Paul, tell us. Who will be the next manager of Celtic? Do you think that he uses Maka Pata? Let me be frank. My coffee's cold. Ninth of October, same birthday as John Lennon. Thinking and timing of Nancy coming in was wrong. If they wanted such a drastic change, it should have been done in the summer, when they had time to implement his ideas in less important time of the season. I remember Thomas Franks' Big Red. He played defensive at Brentford. Where would you mark our out of 10? Where would you rate our performance yesterday? You're saying 7. Yeah, I would say 7.58. I think it's one of our better performances in a long time. Pace of the game, it was an ugly game the first half. The first 20 minutes it was plug ugly as a game to watch. It was all over the place. You were thinking there was no real. They couldn't string three. Both teams couldn't string 3 passes together. It was all over the place. From a Celtic perspective, I would say it was one of our better performances this season. And yeah, 7.5, 8. I'd be right. Judging on paper, I would take Anne. Terrible banter. Should have happened after the New Year derby for me, when we had a 10-point lead. Rodgers is an absolute grifter. An amateur fraud. He toiled against any Rangers manager on decent teams. He was utterly clueless. To be fair, he made his money completely out of his depth. Pep couldn't manage us. Pep couldn't manage Spurs. Horrible team to manage. Frank done well. Robbie Keane. I think we all know that Robbie Keane is the man that Dermot will go for. I think that Irish connection, just wait on an Irish connection being brought into the boardroom. And then we'll see where it all ends. This obsession with formations is a red herring. Formations change all the time. The formation is just a starting system. Impressing is different. Our Irishman and Porto, what is our formation at times? Because when I think of formations, I think of the great Alex Ferguson's Manchester United's 4-4-2. And you saw a group of players that would defend in a straight line in a bank of 4, and in the midfield were in a straight line in the bank of 4. And yes, football's changed and they try to do diamond shapes, but Fergie had it done and dusted to a T, playing a 4-4-2 system, and defenders moving up and down in a line together. Celtic formation has seemed to be that sometimes you can have a back 4, and then the defender, the wing backs will go up, and then the midfielders are all over the place. And it's no wonder that Nancy had let's not even talk about it, a board. Keane. Dermot Desmond wants Keane. I think so. It's going to be Maka with Granty. We're still lacking a cutting edge up front. Yeah, we are. And I think that when you look at that goal that Johnny Kenny scored yesterday, I wouldn't mind a manager that played 4-4-2, to be honest. Back to basics. Football is basic. Managers come in with fanciful ideas and formations and try to do this and outsmart. Football's not a difficult thing. And Martin O'Neill's proven that. For the fact that Martin O'Neill's had so long out of football as an old geezer, sacked at his last job because he wasn't successful, 6 years out the game, to come back into the game and fair enough, he's got younger coaches with him that talk about the sort of the aspects of the modern game and stuff. But it's still Martin O'Neill has said it. Look, you've got one objective in football: get the ball out for the keeper, play forward, score a goal. That's it. It's not hard. If a 74-year-old can come in and tell you one thing, if a 74-year-old comes in and wins the league, ha ha. Oh man, it will be the bragging rights for this will go. If you think that the meltdown of 2012 was funny, the bragging rights that we'll have for Martin O'Neill coming in and Celtic have been complete disaster. That will emulate 2012. I mean, that's like taking a space shuttle to the moon. Anyway, Ange said players change games formation. They bring something different to the setup. Yep, I think something that's happened behind the scenes. Forrest, Scales, McCown, all new contracts. Maybe DD has already got a new manager. Martin will go upstairs, I think, says Sean. Well, Martin O'Neill says that he's been asked. And maybe Martin's a sly old fox. Maybe Martin has had a word with Dermot, and this is all speculation. Maybe he's had a word with Dermot. Maybe he knows the next manager, and through intermediaries, or he just picked up the phone and went, Martin, all right, yeah, you know I'm coming in the summer. Go and tell me what players are absolutely shite and what players that you would keep that are maybe out of contract. Fair play. Right, cheers. And that's as much as I go. Hibs watch along today, not on this channel. It may be on the other channel, depending, because what time does it kick off? 5:30. Yes. Yeah, I could probably do a watch along with the Hibs game on the other channel. Hibs Hearts on the other channel. Yeah. Hand of God will be returning then. So yeah, I'll sort that out on the other channel so we could do a watch along with that. Paul Bear says, I agree 4-4-2 would be good for Celtic in the league. I think it would be fantastic in the league because it would allow you could play a defensive game, but then you could also you could play pretty much 70-year-old with a B team wins double. Ha! Oh, the banter years would just take it to a different level. Form, we aren't that good. We're hitting a little bit of form. It's a C team. Baz, it was good to hear the fans singing the feel good factor back at Paradise. Yes, it was. It was brilliant. 4:30. Yeah, it's 4:30 your time, 5:30 my time. That's why I said 5:30. What channel is that? Big Rab, what channel is that? It's the Baz Does Football channel. Where is it? Let me try and find it. It's probably the one that I'll have to do the watch alongs on in the World Cup because you get Celtic fans going, I thought this was a Celtic channel. Well, it was a Celtic channel. It's on that channel there. And I'll probably do quite a lot of World Cup watch is along. We've been pissed poor at headers, seldom win 50-50s. Yes, we do. We're going to be kicking ourselves over a treble here. Yeah, if we had the treble. Ralston should get a new contract. His second goal at the semi. I think it's a big one for Tony Ralston because he's spent a career. If you think about Stephen Welsh wanting to go out and play football, Tony Ralston's at 27. Do you really want to spend the twilight, the height of your career, sitting on the bench and sometimes not even getting on the bench? You know, Tony might think, I've won everything at Celtic. I've done everything. I want to go and play football. There is that Tony will need to think about. Don't know. as as good a backup player that he is, he might go into this summer and go, if I'm a freedom of contract, I could go down south for 2 or 3 years and I could make more money down south in 2 or 3 years than I've made. I mean, people talk about Callum McGregor going to Dubai or Saudi or wherever Rogers is, I don't care, and making life changing money. Tony Ralston could go down to England and sort his family up for life. Don't know, and I'm not kidding by saying that he could double his wages going down to the English First Division Championship, whatever. So it'll be an interesting summer. Say that the team bus arriving yesterday with the atmosphere. Must have been a buzz for the players. The Green Brigade display was class. Yes, it was that. Do we still have that display? Yep, there it's there. Absolute cracker. Huns are all over it, saying it looks like it's sick. They don't realise the significance of the Celtic players and a certain player that scored against Hearts that day. They don't see the significance of it all, but the spirit of '86 was all there to be seen 40 years ago. Absolutely fantastic. Ralston can go, give him his testimonial. We need to up our levels for games against Rangers and Hearts. We won't win playing at the level of yesterday. Any actual should start these games. Dyson will do his usual off the wing. Do you think that? I mean, Falkirk have given a lot of teams a good run for their money this season. Do you think that the other teams are that much better? I don't know. Reckon Alistair Johnson could go. Good, you never know. Last time you did the other channel, Baz, I kept getting your comment as irrelevant to the conversation on YouTube. YouTube was picking on me. Your comment isn't relevant. Your comment isn't relevant. Why did it keep saying that? What were you saying? Because there's no safeguards on that channel at all. It's a free for all. You must have been saying something really bad. Anyway, that has been done and dusted for the day because I've been on for 111 minutes. 111. Now. Been on for 111 minutes. That's way over the time that I was going to be on for today. I had loads of plans this morning. That's went straight out the window. But thank you to everyone who has been here this morning. Quite good viewing numbers this morning. Over 1,800 people have been on the live this morning, which is all good. Thank you to every single one of you that has joined this morning. Much appreciated on a Sunday morning. I'm sure you could be doing much better things as you look at the sunshine. But anyway, you've been here, so I thank you for that. Make sure that you jump on to the other channel later on. We'll have a look at the Hearts Hibs games. And hopefully Hibs maybe get the result there. Anyway, on that note, have an absolutely fantastic day. Sunshine. I'm going to get some sun because we've had a couple of days of bad weather. Anyway. I'm just can't watch us with any confidence these days. Yeah, anyway. Right, I'll catch you all later on.